When AI is trained on AI-generated data, strange things start to happen. It hasn't even been a year since OpenAI released ChatGPT, and already generative AI is everywhere. It's in classrooms, it's in political advertisements, it's in entertainment and journalism and a growing number of AI-powered content farms. Hell, generative AI has even been integrated into search engines, the great mediators and organizers of the open web. People have already lost work to the tech, while new and often confounding AI-related careers seem to be on the rise. Though whether it sticks in the long term remains to be seen. At least for the time being, generative AI seems to be cementing its place in our digital and real lives. And as it becomes increasingly ubiquitous, so does the synthetic content it produces. But in an ironic twist, those same synthetic outputs might also stand to be generative AI's biggest threat. That's because underpinning the growing generative AI economy is human-made data. Generative AI models don't just cough up human-like content out of thin air. They've been trained to do so using troves of material that actually was made by humans, usually scraped from the web. But as it turns out, when you feed synthetic content back to a generative AI model, strange things start to happen. Think of it like data inbreeding, leading to increasingly mangled, bland, and all-around bad outputs. Back in February, Monash University data researcher Jathan Sadovsky described it as Habsburg AI, or a system that is so heavily trained on the outputs of other generative AIs that it becomes an inbred mutant, likely with exaggerated, grotesque features. It's a problem that looms large. AI builders are continuously hungry to feed their models more data, which is generally being scraped from an internet that's increasingly laden with synthetic content. If there's too much destructive inbreeding, could everything just fall apart? To understand this phenomenon better, we spoke to machine learning researchers Sina Alamohamed and Josue Casco Rodriguez, both PhD students in Rice University's Electrical and Computer Engineering Department, and their supervising professor, Richard G. Baraniuk. In collaboration with researchers at Stanford, they recently published a fascinating, though yet to be peer-reviewed, paper on the subject, titled, Self-Consuming Generative Models Go Mad. MAD, which stands for Model Autophagy Disorder, is the term that they've coined for AI's apparent self-allergy. In their research, it took only 5 cycles of training on synthetic data for an AI model's outputs to, in the words of Baraniuk, blow up. It's a fascinating glimpse at what just might end up being generative AI's Achilles heel. If so, what does it all mean for regular people, the burgeoning AI industry, and the internet itself? This interview has been edited for length and clarity. Futurism. So you coined a term for the phenomenon of AI self-consumption, MAD. Can you tell us what that acronym stands for, and what that phenomenon entails? Richard G. Baraniuk. So, AI is a big field. So in ChatGPT a person types in a prompt, then the GPT model synthesizes text to write a response. Or if you're using image generators like DALL-E or Stable Diffusion, you put in a text prompt, and the system generates a digital image. Futurism. Is there a certain threshold where synthetic content starts to cause problems? Josue Casco Rodriguez. It definitely varies from model to model, situation to situation. Sina Alamohamed. Let's look at this intuitively. Futurism. So what are some of the implications for AI companies, then? Casco Rodriguez. So when you're unwittingly using synthetic data, that also applies to practitioners, people who are generating images and putting them on the internet. You're probably not going to be conscious of the fact that what you produce is going to be in the future training of generative models. We see this with the dataset Leon 5B, for example, which was used to train Stable Diffusion. Generative images that people made in the past are being used to train new generative models. Futurism. What are the implications for users of these systems? There are some downsides to watermarking, but if someone's training a new model, they could seek synthetic images with watermarks and throw them out. Futurism. What are the downsides of watermarking? Baraniuk. It intentionally introduces an artifact. Futurism. AI is already being integrated into services throughout the internet, most notably search engines. Baraniuk. This is a really important long-term question. There's no question that madness has the potential to significantly reduce the quality of the data on the internet. Folks are starting to connect those dots. Futurism. Snake eating its tail. Veraniic, no question. Again, it's this idea of loops on top of loops, and that can make it extremely hard to ultimately track down the source of where any problems in AI models are coming from. A quick story there. The whole jumping off point for our research happened when one of our group members was at a conference presenting a poster. Not on this stuff, but on related work, and there was a researcher from industry who walked by who, just offhandedly, remarked that pretty soon, there's gonna be more synthetic images on the internet than real images.